Welcome to the Pearls of Wisdom podcast, brought to you by Southern Jewelry News and Jewelry Store Marketers. Hello, everyone. This is the Pearls of Wisdom Jewelry podcast, and we have another great episode for you. And I am, as always, here with my lovely co-host, Elisa Dillon from Southern Jewelry News. And today we have a special treat. We have George Prout, the president of the Independent Division of Craft Diamonds. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Guy. Thank you, Elisa. It's great to be with you.
This is great, and it's actually just after Mother's Day, and I hope everybody had a great weekend. Elisa, did you do anything fun?
I did. Of course, I'm a mother of two, and was happy to share that. But as you all, my mother was from Louisville, Kentucky, so the Kentucky Derby in my family is a religious holiday, and we have nearly 200 people come over to our siblings. We sing My Old Kentucky Home. We start pouring mint juleps, y'all. It was just amazing. And I don't know if anybody else watched that 80-1 pony win that race. It was amazing. He wasn't even supposed to be in the race. He started last and went up first. It was amazing. That'd be good for all of our jewelers out there. Never give up. You know, even if you start behind, you can go to the front. So yes, mint juleps were pouring all weekend, lots of fun, and Mother's Day. And Guy, I hope you treated your mother with your family and with great surprises and food. And George, I'm sure you enjoyed your Mother's Day with your lovely bride, and hopefully everybody enjoyed it.
Step kids, step grandkids. I will say it also, we are less than 5 weeks out from JCK. So a portion of yesterday was definitely work as well. There's a lot of stuff going on, but it was a great day, and I even got some sunshine, which we haven't had much of lately.
That's right. Our Kentucky Derby party was 50 degrees and raining. But, you know, the teenage girls didn't have any problem with their sundresses. I'm like, it's, you know, these kids these days. But yeah, it was fun. I know Guy probably did some karaoke this weekend because that's what he does every weekend. Didn't you, Guy?
Lisa knows me well. Yes,
karaoke
we did. Yeah, my family. If you know Filipinos, George, they love their karaoke, and my family loves their karaoke. So we broke out some not Woodford Reserve, but we had some other goodness, and yes, we broke out the karaoke and had a good time, and so that was
lots
good.
of reasons to say salamat.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. George, you like karaoke?
I actually sang and played bass in a blues band years ago.
Really?
And so I will say that I do enjoy singing occasionally, although I think something about all these years on my larynx has taken a toll. So I'm a better listener than a singer now.
Got you. Back in the day, George, what was your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, my gosh. You know, that's such an interesting thing. I mean, we played the blues. So I would look for Allman Brothers stuff. You know, you could usually find that in the karaoke area.
Yep.
I worked for a company called GDM back in the 90s, and we had some interesting guests who attended our parties. And so I'm in fact, darn, Elisa, I'm trying to think of the fellow who, in fact, he's about to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which shows you that those people don't know what rock and roll is. But he was in the Commodores, Lionel Richie.
Lionel Richie.
So there were a few Lionel Richie tunes that were fun.
Yeah.
Nice. Sounds good.
Mine's always Creedence Clearwater because their songs are pretty easy to sing. That or Beatles, because the Beatles are pretty easy to sing too.
That is true too.
Yeah.
Love it. We're gonna sing.
What's yours, Guy? What did you sing this weekend, Guy?
Oh gosh. You know what? Actually, have you seen The Rain? Is actually a good one. I love that one.
Absolutely.
Oh yes.
Creedence.
Speaking of CCR.
Yeah, I love that song. That's a great song.
That's good.
So.
Well, yeah. God, I cannot believe we are this close to Vegas. It's, you know, everybody I'm talking to right now is very busy preparing, and so it's like Christmas. You know, everybody is just prepare. So
Well, and it's a sprint given the supply chain issues. I mean, I've got displays coming from here. We just are about to receive, I think tomorrow in Savannah Harbor, a new shop and shop that we're assembling at the Plum Club that was shipped from Turkey. So, just some of those issues. We didn't know exactly when that ship was going to get to Savannah. Fortunately, we're in good shape, but
Oh, that's good.
there are all kinds of things, especially if you're getting anything out of Shanghai right now. Big problems.
Wow. That's the market and world we live in right now.
Yeah.
It is.
So, and
Fortunately, the word I'm getting from the retailers while March took a bit of a dive, and perhaps it was the beginning, I thought, of maybe the contraction that I'm expecting at some point. Then April came back, and Mother's Day week was fantastic. Stores did especially well Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It is increasingly clear that some switch has flipped societally, where we have a whole new generation of consumers who now realize that the best way to convey affection is with a gift of jewelry, and specifically a gift of diamond jewelry. Because I think after De Beers, after we lost De Beers and their advertising, there was a period of over a decade where there was no influence that was explaining to people why diamond jewelry was important. And the reaction that we've seen societally to COVID has, after the trauma, it then became clear that people were starting to reevaluate what was important in their lives, and what was important is that the person you love, and what better way to tell them you love them than with a gift of jewelry. So we've all benefited. I'm not a pessimist, but I still do think we are living in two bubbles. We're living in one bubble that is asset related, that has been going on for 5 or 6 years, and unfortunately also, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately. Fortunately, there's also this amazing jewelry bubble that was caused by COVID, where a combination again of the psychological trauma and a refocusing on what's important in life, combined with the fact that you couldn't spend money in other luxury verticals, propelled just this last December, for example. Our vertical was up 32%, while overall retail sales were down 1.9%. So
Wow.
there is an artificiality to this, and typically you will see some kind of reversion to the mean. And the question is, will we revert to the mean dramatically, or will it be soft? And what can a jeweler do, and what can suppliers do to mitigate the reduction in traffic and sales? To me, those are critical things that I'm thinking about right now.
Wow, that's yeah, that's a really interesting point of view. I haven't heard of that, the jewelry bubble, but that's absolutely true. I'm seeing that as
Oh,
well.
there is absolutely no question that Jody and I have a store here in North Central Pennsylvania, and then we're also partners in 2 stores in the South, and we have seen those 60 to 80% increases month on month since the economy opened back up, and there was no question that that was related both to the fact that people suddenly felt a need to buy jewelry, and also they couldn't go on a cruise, they couldn't go to Europe. Jody and I sail offshore catamarans, and that's, I work really hard, but when I'm playing, I like being on a cat somewhere in the Caribbean or in the Mediterranean. We couldn't do that. So,
Right.
she got a 5 carat total weight Eternity band for Christmas. That is part of what one of those trips would have cost. But I wanted her to have something from the new company I'm working for. And also I wanted her to have lab, so that when she's in the store and a consumer asks her, is lab okay? She'll say, well, I wear it. That's the best endorsement you can possibly have.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, we were talking about a few different things, and in your recent article on Southern Jewelry News, you talk about lab grown and finding a supplier. What is important? Why is lab grown so important, and what's important for retailers to know?
Something happened last year. I know there are jewelers who embraced lab years ago, but something critical happened last year in the August, September, October period, where suddenly people started going to stores and asking for lab. There is no question that the main driver of lab interest is the fact that you can obtain a much larger diamond at the same price. And in fact, one of the things we're seeing in sales training is if you train sales associates to sell up, so that, for example, if you're showing a 1 carat diamond that's $6,500, and for just $1,000 more, we can elevate both the color as well the clarity and get you a 2-carat. When the proposition is proposed that way, there's a lot of success. In fact, one of the things I'm a little worried about is I remember when the Great Recession occurred in 2008, and many stores started to rely on beads as a way of mitigating the fact that there was a dramatic reduction in jewelry purchases, fine jewelry purchases, I should say. Similarly, I'm working on a lot of sales training to make sure that stores continue to successfully sell mined and that sales associates don't take the line of least resistance. The key is to offer lab as a fifth C, as a choice, so that you don't become totally lab dominant. I think somewhere maybe around a 60% mined, 40% lab share sounds like a reasonable equation for me long term. So we're building our sales training pretty much in keeping with that. But I think to understand lab, and you referenced my article, it's valuable to take a look at mined first. Look at the mined supply chain. It starts with one of the miners, in this case, no longer Alrosa, because you can't sell Russian goods. And I will also say, I think a lot of American consumers have made a decision to purposely try not to buy Russian goods. But in the case of De Beers, for example, De Beers pulls the rough diamond out of the mine, and then it sells the rough diamond to a rough diamond trader, who in turn may sell it 1, 2, or 3 more times to other rough traders, and then it finally gets to a cutter. And then the cutter cuts the diamond, and then they sell it to a jewelry manufacturer. And the jewelry manufacturer then makes jewelry out of it, and they in turn sell it to a wholesaler in the United States. Imagine the impact of all of those markups of each of those entities. And I can tell you, De Beers tried to solve this problem back around 2000 by an initiative that they called Supplier of Choice, in which they tried to get the site holders to work directly with independents. And unfortunately, that initiative failed in large part because technologies did not exist at that time to allow the site holders to sell hundreds or thousands of independent jewelry stores without having tons of extra infrastructure. And that's not how site holders operate. So now fast forward today to 22 years later and look at the lab scenario. Now if you can find a grower who also cuts, who also manufactures jewelry, and who will sell it then directly to the retailer, or even better yet, memo it to the retailer so they don't have to worry about taking the loss that seems to be occurring as lab prices change. There are tremendous opportunities to make the supply chain more streamlined and to actually have there be less profit in the middle so that the retailer has more margin. In fact, if you examine the lab-grown supply chain, what you find is almost all the profit starts or lies either at the beginning with the level of the grower or at the end at the level of the retailer. So one of the consequences of this is there are a lot of people selling lab right now, lots and lots of diamond dealers. I suspect as the growers come that many of these dealers, perhaps most, will be disintermediated. And when that happens, I don't expect them to close their doors. I expect them to actually become B2C internet retailers. So right now, jewelers are making a lot of money because the margins are great in the large center stones. The large center stones will still sell, but the margins are going to get compressed the same way they have been in mined. So long term, the real money in lab is going, in terms of profitability and markup, is going to be in finished jewelry, because that's the category that's very difficult to sell online. I mean, as hard as, say, Blue Nile has tried to take independence out, it hasn't worked because women want to try the jewelry on. And so I think for your listeners, watch how over the next 12 to 18 months, lab as a profit center continues in larger stones, but suddenly inside-out hoops, tennis bracelets, 5-stone bands, 10-stone bands, 3-stone bands. Lots of the core jewelry items that sell very well in mined are going to sell even better in lab. And suddenly a 2.5-time markup or a 3-time markup becomes a real thing.
Wow. Yeah. I guess, from what I hear from different jewelers, it's a mixed reaction. There's some that, use, like you mentioned, Georgia, use lab grown as a strategy, as a product, because not everybody goes with mine and they can upsell and bigger, better. But there are some that don't
Sure,
want to talk about lab grown.
there are some stores that resist the idea either in principle based on the fact that as a disruptive influence, they perceive lab to be a bad thing. And I understand that. In fact, I will even tell you that in my wife's case, what happens when we go to church on Sundays, I'm reminded of the fact that jewelers don't stop being jewelry store owners when they close the store. They continue to be a jewelry store owner. And a couple of years ago, as I was talking with my wife about the importance of embracing lab, she said to me, I don't want somebody walking down the aisle Sunday morning, seeing an empty space next to us and purposely not sitting there because that $5,000 diamond they bought from me 2 years ago is only worth $3,000 now. That is a catastrophic emotional feeling. And what I would say is that what has balanced things so that now suddenly 40% of Jody's sales are lab is the fact that people are actually asking for it. And I'll even quote, there is a Harvey Ravinsky who owns a very upscale chain outside of Philadelphia called Bernie Robbins, said to me on a Zoom about a month ago, George, I was resistant to lab, but I've decided to sell what my customers want. And, that was such, in very few words, that told a fabulous story. And then I was speaking with Brian, who owns a store in Green Bay, who has now pursued lab pretty vigorously. And he told me a story a year and a half ago. He had gone to a car dealership to buy a pickup truck. And the salesperson spent an hour trying to tell him that he didn't need what he wanted. And he came home to his wife and he said, that's exactly what we've been telling people about lab. It's time to think about it in a different way. I would also say that the fact that lab has gone down in price because it's a technological item or a technologically produced item. I mean, on the one hand, it is concerning if you're a baby boomer and you remember reading stories about Europeans who were fleeing Hitler, who sold everything they owned, turned it into diamonds so they were able to cart all their net worth across the ocean in their pockets. I get the fact that for baby boomers, there was this supposition that diamonds are a store of value. But I have come to think about it in slightly different terms. If you think about how consumer products have really eaten our lunch for the last 2.5 or 3 decades, the reason they've done so, the reason that the consumer products vertical has competed so effectively against diamond jewelry is because of something called Moore's Law. Moore's Law states that over every 18-month period, computing power will double. And that's almost exactly what's occurred. And so what's been happening to us in electronics is that every 18 to 24 months, the value that a consumer gets when they buy electronics keeps going way up, way up, way up, while the value that they were getting from diamonds was actually going slightly down as diamond prices were going slightly up. What I think you'll now see, and what your listeners will see, is that diamonds are now on the Moore's Law curve, where the value that diamonds represent will now go up, potentially doubling every 3-4 years. So that the kinds of products that we make will not only now be accessible to a lot more consumers, in addition, the kinds of jewelry that, say, Audrey Hepburn wore to the Oscars in 1962 are now accessible, like that 5-carat total weight band that I got for my wife. I mean, in mine, that's a pretty expensive piece of jewelry, but in lab, it's accessible. So my hope is that as time goes by, we'll start to compete ever more effectively with technologically produced items in the electronics field so that consumers are going to want to buy jewelry. Does that make sense?
It does.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, if we as human beings found a way to take a couple who was having fertility problems and be able to give them in vitro.
Oh, for sure.
Right? And I mean, of course, I'm not comparing diamonds to humans, but it's pretty much the same thing. They're both born in a little petri dish, and so that's why I'm like, well, why is it people that are just so down on the lab? I mean, yeah, but if you had to and you wanted a baby, wouldn't you go have in vitro? It's the same to me. Is it the same, George, or I'm not looking at it right?
Since you brought it up, I remember as a youngster reading a Time magazine article in about 1968 in which there was a debate between two theologians about whether a human being conceived outside the body would have a soul. I mean, it is amazing to me that our thought process has come so far. Obviously, anyone who tried to advocate that position today would be laughed out of the room. And in fact, this is one of the reasons that certain forward thinkers are starting to redefine us not as Homo sapiens, but as Homo technologicus. That we're actually moving into a new era as a species where technology is impacting us. And I'll give you an example of that. You know, over the last 250,000 years, our ancestors have been biologically indistinguishable from us. But a very special thing happened about 80,000 years ago, the invention of language. So suddenly, parents could teach their children how to avoid being eaten by a lion, when the monsoon was going to come, which plants contain neurotoxins. And so what happened, this inserted a probabilistic element into the probability of reproductive success. So over the next 50 to 100 generations, the children who liked stories and acted on them out-reproduced when they reached adulthood the children who didn't. So we are quite literally the offspring of story-loving ancestors. So, and we all know if you want to sell something, build a narrative, create a story. I think that there is actually in a neurophysiological sense, that's why that works. So similarly, if you look at Gen Z, and remember, you know, the average engaging purchaser is a 28-year-old, and the leading edge of Gen Z is 25 and a half. So consider the fact that their prefrontal cortexes, and that's the part of the brain that was the last part of the brain that developed in humans, the prefrontal cortex that tells you who you are is different in Gen Z. It's been rewired for several reasons. In fact, there's a lot of literature on the net now about this. The fact that they participated as children in the 2008 debacle. They have seen more stress than any other generation as kids. And now they've also spent more time looking at computers, looking at cell phones, looking at iPads, and frankly, looking at blue light. It turns out that the blue light that a phone gives off has the impact of rewiring some of the circuits in the brain. So suddenly we've got this new set of consumers who have been rewired not in 50 to 100 generations, but in one generation. So how are you going to sell to them? In fact, one of the things that I'm working on now as well is how do you build sales training so that your sales associate in the store can communicate effectively with Gen Z? How do you build a dialogue with somebody who literally thinks that words are violence? You know, I mean, the common retort from many baby boomers is we've created a whole generation of snowflakes. Well, I think you got to look a little more deeply into this and say, okay, if that's the case, then how do we sell these snowflakes? You know, I mean, from a practical standpoint, this is a very different kind of consumer. So, and the beauty of Lab has certain attributes that are uniquely well suited to the Gen Z consumer. There are certain companies that are actually able to grow Lab without creating carbon. In fact, I'm kind of hoping one of the things I saw, I was in India working with my company 2 weeks ago. I was there for 9 days. And when I visited the laboratory and the cutting facility in Surat, I saw solar panels everywhere. We're already creating 2.5 kilowatts of energy, enough for 8,500 people who are cutting diamonds in the factory, as well as the current lab. And as we add more reactors, we'll also add more solar cells. So we're hoping not just to be carbon neutral. I'm kind of hoping that either by the JCK show or sometime in the summer, we will have an outside authority attest to the fact we're carbon positive. We're actually removing carbon from the environment. So that plays very well in the Gen Z group. I think also social sustainability. I mean, as an example, and we're not alone in doing this, but at HK, we've now taken hundreds of women and we're training them in what are traditional male roles. Because the fact of the matter is, in India, times are changing. And there's an opportunity with this burgeoning middle class to actually have women who are educated and who have jobs that are traditionally only owned by men. And I think we're a leader in this, which is a really cool thing. So those are the kinds of things where if you can take that and you can package it. And I'll also say there are companies like SCS Global, Positive Luxury, who are the good housekeeping seal of approval today for all things technological. So if you have third-party attribution that these things are happening, and that you have these characteristics in the product you're selling as a retailer, then you can use that in your marketing to bring this new wave of consumers in the store. And remember, for jewelers who have gone through the millennial wars, it was hard to figure out how to sell to millennials. It was very, very difficult. I remember jewelers saying to me, these people, they talk a different language, they're not loyal, there were a whole bunch of issues. Well, if you think millennials were tough, just wait till you meet Gen Z. So I think that one of the benefits of Lab, it's not just an added revenue stream. Lab also provides an opportunity, if you're an independent retailer, to create this new wave of engagement consumers. Because one of the behaviors that I think they will still have is when a woman receives an engagement ring, the first thing she does is tell everybody she's ever met in her entire life. And everybody asks the same 3 questions. How did he propose? How big's the diamond? Where'd you get it? So by tapping into Gen Z in a huge way with Lab, you can make a preemptive strike against your competition so that the word of mouth amongst this new wave of consumers is they got to come to your store to buy an engagement ring. So I know I covered a lot of ground there, but I think these things are really important in the world of Lab. This is a really big deal. And the omni-channel marketing and omni-channel selling opportunities that Lab produces are just incredible. And I'll also give you one other thought. I was speaking with a prospective customer up in New England last week, and he's in his early 30s. And he said to me, George, my whole generation only thought that an engagement ring was what you had to buy for diamonds, and then you could kind of go to sleep as a jewelry consumer. All my buddies now, they're getting their wives and their girlfriends diamond studs, tennis bracelets. There suddenly has been this reload of demand in a new wave of consumers who are, in candor, flush with cash right now. So, these things are great to hear, and I think they bode well for the future of the industry. So those who see Lab as a potential threat, I think if you look at it slightly differently, Lab represents some tremendous opportunities that we should be taking advantage of.
Wow. Well, Lisa, I don't know about you, but I'm certainly learning about a lot about Lab. But talking to George, man, I'm getting a lot of knowledge about all kinds of things, including what happened. Man, he told us what happened.
I have this intense intellectual interest in everything, but I am probably more interested in consumer behavior than almost anything else. Like I can't grade a diamond and I can't design a ring. But what is it that drives consumers? What makes people make the decisions that they make? To me, these are fascinating. I go to sleep thinking about this. I wake up thinking about this. And to be in a position to lead this powerhouse company that is probably going to end up dominating this new category the same way that they dominate polished diamonds and polished diamond jewelry. This for me is a dream come true. And it means that I never go to work, because when I'm working, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like I'm pursuing an intellectual hobby. I'll also tell you, I have a lot of experience, but there's a danger in experience. The problem with experience is that it produces wisdom, but that produces an incapacity to innovate. Because once you've decided the fundamental pillars of how things work, it's extremely difficult to undecide them. In fact, if you look at hard science PhDs, over and over and over again, almost all of them are 35 years old or younger. It is very hard to think about things in new ways after you get to a certain place. So I can also tell you that I have a mantra every morning. At some point when I'm shaving or I get in the shower, I remind myself, Lord, help me discover something today that I'm fundamentally wrong about. Because the only way to be able to continue to innovate is to also recognize that some of the stuff you think is wrong. So, I think about a lot of things, and I've just given you some of the ones I think about. But I can tell you, I'm constantly questioning in a scientific sense, where's the evidence? Why do you believe this, George? What are your preset attitudes that are causing you to come to conclusions that actually aren't right? So don't think for a minute that I'm not also thinking in those terms.
Well, the name of the show is Pearls of Wisdom, and you certainly dropped a whole lot on that.
He sure did. Well, I've known George for so long, and, we talk very often, and I'm always look forward to his calls just to kind of give me what he's hearing on the street or what his insights are. And, he's written articles for us, and sure enough, everything he said certainly came true, or, he was right. So it's really important to keep that knowledge going and talk to people like George that are on the pulse, and who knows, jewelers, reach out to people like George who you're doing business with. Don't be afraid to ask him questions on anything jewelry related, or running your store, or how you can attract more consumers, because again, this guy is full of wisdom, and we need to utilize that, and remind people too that we're all partners here. We all work together for one common goal, and that's to be successful in this industry.
Well, it's kind of you to say that, Elisa. What I have enjoyed is the fact that by taking a different approach intellectually, that people have been entertained by the thought process. And I think, when I do seminars, when I write articles, hopefully people leave that experience thinking about things in a new way. Because as I said, the problem is we're all constantly having an experience which produces wisdom, but it's a stainless steel trap. It prevents us from innovating.
Wow. Well, you certainly have a lot of wisdom, and you said you've imparted a lot of wisdom here, and you said you're lucky to be working with Craft Diamonds, but I believe they are also very lucky to have you running the independent division of the company. So,
well, I can tell you, having spent a week at the offices in India, I feel like the kid who met a girl at the dance, and he knows he likes her, but the more time he spends with her, the more he likes her. I mean, my week at HK just blew me away. I was so jet lagged that I was a little confused the first couple of days. But I was taken on these factory tours. I've been on all kinds of factory tours in India. I've never seen anything like what I saw with these guys. So it is a really it's a fun thing for me, and hopefully it will result in us bringing some cool stuff to the jewelers.
Wow. Wow, it sounds amazing. I think people will come to just talk to you because they want to learn more, just hear you speak, like I would, because that was all the information you imparted today was really amazing.
Well, good. I hope your listeners like it, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Why don't you tell us about your company and your position, and how do people find you?
Well, I was fortunate in that I had been working with HK, actually having them supply certain products at my former employer. And the beauty of HK was, for starters, their size. They're the largest supplier of polished diamonds in the world, and also certainly one of the largest suppliers of diamond jewelry. And so having an opportunity to work with them, I got to know them, but they also got to know me. And there was an intellectual property lawsuit that was going on between Washington Diamond and a company called Phoenix that prevented HK from becoming a grower. This last August, when that lawsuit was in which the court found that WD did not have intellectual property in the way CV is grown, caused the owners at HK to do two things. First, they decided to become a grower really fast, and I think we intend to become the largest grower on planet Earth. But second, it occurred to them that they could develop an entirely new distribution pathway, and that would be in the independent channel. And they approached me because they knew me, and they had seen some of the things that I had done elsewhere. And so I joined the company in late October after my duties with my prior employer were done. And I've spent the last 6 months working on the branding, working on the product line itself. And by the way, when they did start doing lab, they launched a new division that they refer to as Craft. So it is actually Craft that I am a divisional president for. I will also say that because of recent events, we intend at some point to move into mined diamonds and mined jewelry pretty aggressively. But we had not intended to quite so quickly. But because of recent events, there is a program called Code of Origin that De Beers runs that is a way of tracking the provenance of diamonds. And so we're also going to actually launch a mined diamond program because we think there's a wonderful opportunity right now for independent jewelers. At any time, we have about $300 million worth of diamonds on the HK website. and at least 20% of those qualify for code of origin. So we're going to make those available to jewelers as well. So we'll be at the Plum Club. I've got 10 booths there, and we look forward to seeing anybody who wants to stop by and chat.
Sounds
Craft
good.
diamonds.
Yes, ma'am. And the name of the brand, by the way, is Revelation.
That's right.
Because
Yes.
we're big into revealing stuff. We think I'm going to have a lot of fun playing with the word reveal.
Pick up your latest copy of Southern Jewelry News and read George's article. He really does give some great tips on choosing a lab-grown supplier. 10, I believe that was the top 10 that
Top
we
10
did.
questions to ask. You know,
Ask your
I'll tell you,
lab-grown diamond.
there's a saying that people from the South, generally, cultures only have one word for snow. Cultures in the North have 50 words for snow because they have a much more nuanced understanding because they see snow all the time. Well, I thought similarly it would be helpful to help the jewelers. Actually, why don't I give them the questions to ask? Because for some of them, they haven't really thought this through, and that hopefully that article will help them.
I hope so too.
Wow.
yes.
So
Make sure you pick that up. Top 10 questions to ask in selecting a primary lab-grown supplier in both Southern and Mid-America Jewelry News this month. I love the diamond. I love this ad.
It was a little teaser.
Wait till you see this month's coming out in June. You can pick up your issue, the June issue, guys, in Vegas. George will be out there, right?
will.
You'll be
Yes,
at the
ma'am.
Plum Club, as you said. So definitely go by and visit him. And any other questions or anything, guys? Should again, I think he really put in a lot of great reasons, and he is our pearl of wisdom today by giving us all these great pearls of wisdom. I think people will, and we definitely want you on again, George.
Happy to do so,
know,
Lisa. It is great. Always enjoy talking with you. And Guy, it's nice to meet you. I've been reading your
Yeah.
columns, but it's
Oh,
great
wow.
to actually have a chance to chat with you.
Yeah.
okay, you're too kind. No, but yes, it's very very nice meeting you, and the Vegas is right around the corner, and you have anything you're looking forward to anything in Vegas? Do
You
do
know,
you have?
I intend to have several very nice meals with old friends. I got to tell you, what I'm looking forward to is exposing. I mean, it's like I've been in this cave for the last 7 months. I'm so looking forward to actually showing people what I've been working on. I'm really really excited about that. That will be the fun for me this time around Vegas.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to seeing you there. Good luck in Vegas, and I know it's going to be awesome. They're bringing back the concert or the show, right, with the Hamilton crew, I believe it is the cast of the Hamilton, I believe what I read. But so that's going to be really interesting.
Oh, I think George, I think the Plum Club has Katy Perry.
Yeah, we've got Katy
All
Perry as a matter of fact.
Katy Perry. The Plum
I think
Club has
that'll be
Katy
fun.
Perry because she is doing her residence there.
Exactly. Yeah, this is a good time to get.
Oh, gosh. Well,
Listen-
I would love to be there, but my son decided that he and his fiance needed to get married on June 11th.
Well, great timing. What are you going to do?
So, as much as I'm going to hate seeing all my friends and all of you great people out in Vegas, I have a son to get married so they can get busy with some grandchildren. So that's my, but I certainly will miss it. George, are you going to be at any other shows, or are these any other smaller selects
We
or
are-
anything like that? Or
You know,
right now,
we're-
if they're going to see you need to make an appointment and come see you in Vegas.
I'll tell you, my concern is this. Even though we have extraordinary capacity for scale, what's going to happen is when we get overloaded, I'm right now we're looking at delivery timetable in late July. If for people who don't come on board in Vegas, that's going to slide to September and October. And it's regrettable, but I can't help that. I mean, we have a tremendous number of appointments. I think I just did my 84th Zoom in the last 4 weeks earlier today. And those Zooms have produced about 65 customers, as well as, I guess, another 17 or 18 who just want a little more information, and they're going to come see us in Vegas. So I think, the good news is that we have an awful lot of interest. The bad news is that it means that if you don't talk with us fairly early on, the delivery dates for the actual product and the displays and the advertising materials will shift. So the earlier the better. That's all I can say.
Yeah, strategize.
Yeah.
Strategize
We're doing Atlanta. We're doing Prime.
Okay, good.
I'm also working on some other shows, and of course CBG. So there will be lots of opportunities to chat with us.
Great. That's good. They definitely.
Oh, and one last thing. You can also connect with us at sales at Craft Diamonds. That's craft with a C, diamonds plural, .co. So, or you can write to me, George at craftdiamonds.co. Love to hear
Sounds
from you.
good. If they look up, so they can check out the website as well, craftdiamonds.co.
They can't yet because we're
Oh.
doing some pretty fancy stuff. So we're going to launch that at JCK too.
All
But
right.
it'll be there. But people are certainly welcome to write to me. I am very attentive to emails from people who are interested in what we're doing.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, George, this has been amazing. Certainly appreciate all the wisdom that you've imparted. Lisa, it's always a pleasure. And this is another great episode of Pearls of Wisdom Jewelry Podcast. And please, if you are really intrigued and with George and Lab Grown Diamonds, go check him out. Go find him in JCK or email him. Look for them at the Plum Club. Of course, always take a look and read your Southern Jewelry and Mid-America Jewelry News. And I'm Guy with Jewelry Store Marketers, and certainly appreciate you listening. If you have any questions or would like to join the conversation, make sure you find our website, join the newsletter, comment on this podcast, because this has been amazing. Don't you think, Lisa?
I did. I knew it would be. That's why I wanted to get George on early. Not only is he someone that I totally respect and adore, I know that our readers really appreciate him and will always learn something, and that's what we want to do. So we're just so grateful, and we look forward to having you back again after JCK and closer maybe towards the holidays, so we can see where we are with this lab grown, because it's just blowing up. And we're just happy to have the opportunity to get you before you're just too crazy with getting things, because it's getting really busy out there right now for all of us.
Well, thank you guys. It was great talking with you, and I look forward to doing it again soon.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Pearls of Wisdom Jewelry Podcast. For more information about the show, please visit southernjewelrynews.com/podcast, brought to you by Southern Jewelry News and Jewelry Store Marketers. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you can catch the next show. See you then.